Just to give you an idea of how the right wing in America is covering this, because that, unfortunately, I think leads to the sort of policies that we have in America towards Palestinians and towards Israelis. This is a snapshot that I took of the front page of Fox News this morning. You'll see there, battle below, Israel's high tech a match for Hamas's terror tunnels, which, like I was saying before the show began, in the best case scenario, the tunnels are only a match for the technology and the military might that Israel has. But it's an open question from Fox News' point of view. Like all of what they have that they can buy with the $3 billion that we provide in economic and military support per year might be the equivalent of some tunnels dug in the ground that are used to transport materials, to produce explosives, and to move around Hamas militants. But it's also used to bring in medicine and food and clothing and raw materials for building and things like that.
I'm sick to death of Fox's propaganda and propaganda all over and in every issue. And so now they're terror tunnels. Now look, do they use the tunnels to bring in weapons? Yes, they do, okay? So do I understand Israel's concern about the tunnels? Of course I do, I get that, right? And I'm the guy who said originally, not a ground invasion, but special forces if you want to take out tunnels or whatever you think is a real threat for Israel, okay? So that's what Israel can do in the short term as they work for peace in the long term. But understand, they're not just terror tunnels. Israel has blockaded, and so has Egypt, Gaza entirely. So some food and medical supplies come in, but they can't export anything, and they certainly can't bring in material to improve Gaza, whether it's construction material, etc. And they can't do trade. They can't leave Gaza. So the tunnels are also literally a pressure valve to bring in material, to bring out material, and yes, sometimes it's weapons, but a lot of times it's bread. A lot of times it's cement. A lot of times it's people, right? Yeah. Because they live in a giant prison. So you have to acknowledge what the tunnels actually are. You also have to acknowledge what Gaza is, which is occupied territory and the world's largest prison. Yeah. It's a fact.
Fox is trying really hard, as a lot of Americans are as well, to make it seem as though both sides are completely equal, especially when it comes to their defense mechanisms. But they're not. We had that conversation on the show yesterday. They're not equal. They're not equal when it comes to military capabilities, defense mechanisms. The Palestinians don't have the ability to defend themselves. They don't have the Iron Dome. So if the Israelis are attacking them, they're screwed. That's why you see such a huge number of casualties on the Palestinian side as opposed to the Israeli side. So I hate when I see these arguments made because it's not true. It is propaganda, and you have to report what the facts are, what the reality is.
Yeah, that makes it look like it's just fireworks, but those are actually dangerous.
I think without Iron Dome, the Israelis would be even harsher than they are, because then you'd have actual lots of deaths in Israel from the rockets, and they'd attack that much harder.
I would make the case that prior to Iron Dome, I don't think the rockets were producing. I mean, maybe the rockets are somewhat more sophisticated or more numerous than they were in previous years, but I don't think there was ever a period when they were causing significant casualties. Nothing compared to what Israeli airstrikes can do. I mean, we saw numbers since 2005, there have been 24 Palestinian casualties for every Israeli casualty. It was a little bit less off that ratio prior to 2005, but it was still far, far from even. So I think you're right. I think the reaction that we'd be seeing right now would be different without Iron Dome, but I think that they were already overplaying the threat of the rockets before that was fully set up and fully implemented.
Look, this is the same exact thing we do here in the U.S. We have this monumental military advantage over the rest of the world. And then we obliterate Iraq. I mean, we shock and awe. We just bomb the living hell out of it. By the end of the war, at bare minimum, 200,000 Iraqi civilians are dead because of the damage and violence done by all sides. And then if somebody attacks us, we got goddamn terrorists, you know? Yeah, but they don't have your drones. They don't have your jets. They don't have your, smart bombs. So I'm not excusing their actions, but I also don't want you to excuse our actions, right? So when we kill civilians, whether it's the US or Israel, just saying, well, no, it's okay, I did it with really sophisticated jets and missiles, doesn't excuse it. Doesn't make it any better than them doing a suicide bomb or a car bomb or whatever they have at their disposal. They're wrong, but we're also wrong when we kill 80% civilians, whether it's Israel doing it or us doing it in Iraq. Yeah.